always said, as long as we set expectations, this is what you're going to get, this is what you're going to do, this is how we're going to interact.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Today I have a very, very special guest. He have a I would say, long working history in software technology, manufacturing, and then decided to doing photography full time. So it's been 20 years since that. So I think there's a lot of things we can learn from him. And I couldn't wait to bring him on and introduce him to everybody here. So Michael, could you share with us, how did you get started in photography and what was it like in the first few years?
Well, hello everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be on your show. I'm honored. But to answer your question about how I got started in photography, I've always liked photography ever since I was a little boy. I always had a camera in my hand. I always liked taking pictures. The way I got into actually commercial photography or making a living at it was um, I was and kind of still am a high school hockey coach. And uh, my wife and I were eating at a restaurant one night, and I answered the phone, and one of my hockey parents was on the other end, somewhat frantic. And the gist of it was that her son was shipping out with the Marines, and it was better for him to be married for the ship out because they would move his wife as well. So they needed a wedding photographer. And I said, well, my wife and I are not wedding photographers. We're photographers. As I would coach the games, I would drag my wife to the games and give her the camera and say, take pictures, just to give her something to do. And she was a good photographer, and she knew what we could do. And she said, no, no, you'd be perfect. And I was going, we're not wedding photographers. But she talked me into it. I felt sorry. So I said, okay, so when's the wedding? She said, in 6 days. And I said, what? She said, yeah,
Just
Brandon's got to
just
ship
six
out.
days, right?
Yeah. Brandon's got to ship out in 6 days, and we're planning this wedding, and we can't find any vendors. Well, yeah, because it's 6 days. Everyone's booked a year in advance. So obviously, they couldn't find a photographer. They couldn't find a venue. They couldn't find a DJ. They couldn't find a minister. They couldn't find, anything, caterers. So long story short, they did everything at their house. Friends chipped in to do their part, and we did our part. We were their photographers. So we shot that wedding. We had no expectations of how well things would come out, but again, my wife and I planned ahead. We scouted out the backyard and what was going to happen, and the wedding went off without a hitch. And from that wedding, we got 6 referrals, just word of mouth, from people either in the wedding or attending the wedding. So we had no intentions of becoming wedding photographers, and we would never tell people, if you wanted to be a wedding photographer, follow this path. We were kind of forced into it and kicking and screaming, but it worked for us. So we started doing weddings, and then we started doing other work, senior photography, some product photography, um, and then through a different career changes, especially because of the economy, how it changed. My wife and I found ourselves just saying, "Hey, the photography business is going well enough to put my efforts into it full time." So that's what I did. I went full time photography. She went part time photography, full time corporate controller, and that's kind of where we are today.
So when you were first starting out, you were working your full-time job and then you were doing like wedding photography on the side.
Yep.
In and when did you have enough work from the photography to kind of, supplement your main income and you decided to quit the full-time job?
Uh, about 6 years ago, um, my wife and I were working for the same company, and it was a startup company. And we had worked there for a number of years, and they finally got sold. So my wife had already found another job because they had let us know ahead of time what was going on. I was one of the last employees to be let go after the acquisition. So I stood there, I was there long enough to know that, okay, what's going to be my exit strategy. So it just got to the point where my wife said, we've got enough business to go ahead and start. Just don't go out and find another job. Just stick with the photography. So um, so when I started doing that full time, obviously I did not cover my full payroll. It probably covered about half of it, but I covered enough to pay for the studio, and cover my insurance. So at that point, um, we weren't losing money, and that was our main strategy. As long as we're not losing money, then we can keep going forward. So, and that's what we did. We found a studio downtown Elkhart, which is our city, and set up a studio. And we still do mostly weddings on the weekends, but when we're not doing weddings on the weekends, we need to be productive. So we try to do seniors, we try to do real estate, we try to do product photography. And for a short time, right before COVID, I was doing a lot of pet photography for some of the local dog breeders. But then when COVID hit, they didn't need pictures of their dogs. They just needed the dogs. And because people would buy them sight unseen. So again, you've got to be able to roll with the punches for sure.
So how I would say how fast do you grow to fully like supplement your income and able to make the new space because you also went out and leased the studio. So now you
Oh yeah.
got rent. So how quickly did you grow and make the business profitable?
It took us a good 5 years before that to get to the point where we had enough steady business, either in referrals or just new clients. And that came about the same time that the company was being sold, so that when my position finally got phased out, I was able to step into photography at that level where I wasn't losing money. I wasn't making a whole lot at that point, but I wasn't losing money. So at that point, it just that going forward, I had to go up, up, up. So we haven't ever gone down. Even during COVID, um, I had enough side business. Again, going back to my programming days and my manufacturing, some of my old customers, I was still supporting. Um, so I could fall back on that a little bit, still get a little bit more of the photography. And so we weathered that storm of COVID. And now we're just looking forward. We picked up, we do school sport photography for the high schools. We picked up a new school this year. So that's got us, again, kind of off to the races.
What was the best method of growth that you experienced up until now?
Repeat that question.
What was your best method for growing your business up until now?
Okay. I didn't hear the method part, and that's what I wanted to key in on. Our methodology had always been, first and foremost, we wanted word of mouth marketing. We wanted people to talk about us to other people, and get referrals that way, because that was and still is our best method of marketing is someone saying, hey, you got to use this guy, or you got to use Michael and Don. They're great. Um, Past that, you've always got to find some other secondary means of marketing yourself. So we do trade shows, we do the bridal fairs, we do um, what used to be direct mail marketing, but then it became direct email marketing. And then at some point, you just got to go out, hit the pavement, and introduce yourself to the local businesses and say, "Here, this is what we do." And by the way, we're located across the street, and it's always interesting. Our building has really, really tall windows in the front, and we've got our logos plastered all over them, and people still, I never knew you were across the street. So you can't take it for granted that people don't know who you are. You have to make sure people know who you are.
I see. So how did you I would say get into like seniors portraits and then also the like the school sport teams photography?
The senior portraits came again by word of mouth. People who knew us, who had, kids that were going to be seniors that say, "Hey, do you do senior pictures?" And, we would say yes. And a lot of them would come from, uh, we would see somebody, especially on our, um, either from our weddings, they were in the wedding, or we just knew them from a wedding or some other event. And we said, "Hey, we'd like to photograph you." So we'd bring them into the studio or out on location. We wouldn't charge them. We'd just take their picture and they would remember us. And they'd always bring a friend, or they would always tell friends. So again, that word of mouth was key for us. Um, but then,
You were really building out your reputation because you're out there, they see you, they get to know who you are, know your name, and have a good experience with you. And then you would request like, hey, if you have some photography stuff coming up, I would appreciate if you can think about me and give me a call. Is that the strategy?
yeah, that's always a strategy. Again, you've got to build that reputation with your clients, and then build that rapport that they trust you and they had fun with you. And then as they talk about you, there's no there's no better marketing than have someone else talk you up. And then, but you still have to come through with the goods afterwards. So if someone's coming to you and they're all happy and excited, and then you produce bad work, yeah, that sword is two edges. Um, it can either cut through the red tape or create a whole lot of roadblocks for you. So yeah, we would rely on them to remember us later in life. And we've done engagements and weddings, and newborn sessions from seniors, or just kids, and then they were seniors, and then they were engaged, then they were married, and then they were pregnant. So we did that. And that was one of we wanted that life cycle. We wanted to be, and that's how we got into doing newborn photography, because we found we didn't want to do newborn photography in the beginning. And what we would do, we would hit those seniors, those, engagements, those weddings, and then we'd lose them, and someone else would pick them up as their family photographer. So we knew that we had to adapt, when we knew we had to pick up that skill set. And photographing newborns is a skill set, just like photographing babies or children is a skill set, one that you have to learn and master. And so now we get them after they have their babies, we get them as they're raising their kids, and then we get them family pictures every year thereafter. And that was always kind of our goal, was once we had a bride, we should be able to keep them, and it's in our contract, you are a client for life. If
How
you're a
do you
bride, you
do
don't
the
have to pay.
follow-up?
Yeah.
It seems like you have such a very high resale value as a marketing, would comment as a marketer was like you have a very high resale value in your client's lifetime value. How did you follow up with these clients and follow their life cycles?
We stalked them on Facebook and Instagram, and we kept in touch. So obviously, you do a wedding, and then they go off, and at some point, there's a baby announcement. So when we see that, the first thing we do is we send them an email. "Hey, congratulations! All right, we got to start thinking about, maternity pictures." So once we can, and then there's a whole thing about that. You can either do it every month and show the baby bump growing, or that last month, let's bring you in when you're at your biggest, um, and do that. So we have to make sure we know where they are in their life cycle. So after they have their kids, then okay, now it's newborn photography. So hey, let's set that date. Now, do you want to do one every 6 months? And you've got to stay on that. You've got to build that marketing funnel down the road, or what I say, you have to build your calendar of clients. So
That's
we
amazing,
we
man.
sometimes do good. Other times, someone's come in and grabbed our clients away from us, which is fine, because they make those acquaintances. They may have a neighbor that does photography and they like, so and they see them more. So you can't get mad when someone doesn't go with you, unless they didn't go with you because of something you did that you shouldn't have done. So if you do all your stuff right and they still go with somebody else, then it was just meant to be that way.
This is so helpful because the social media nowadays really help you to kind of pay attention to your clients, like what's going on in their life. They just got married, and then all of a sudden, people announce like, "Oh, we're having a baby," and then
Yep.
you immediately, okay, we're gonna send them some emails, some photo album work that we have done, some attorney photos, some newborn photography albums, and just show them like, hey, this is something we do. If you are thinking about to do this, I would appreciate if you could think about us. I love that because it's so simple, but it takes a lot of attention to details to able to follow all of your clients. And you're not, how do you say it, it's not a transaction, it's always a repeat business.
Right. Right. You've already got their rapport with them. They've already been in front of your camera. They've already laughed at your stupid jokes. And that's one of the things I always tell my clients is like, you don't have to laugh at my dumb jokes, but you do have to laugh at the attempt to make you laugh when I tell you a bad joke. So they get used to that. And again, if if you stay on top of things and you stay on their forefront of their mind, when they're ready for a photographer, then you'll be on that list. You may not be the one they select. Again, they may like in photography. There's styles of photography, so they may like how someone else does their imagery. So and that's fine. Everyone's got their. Some people like red cherry Kool-Aid, and some like grape Kool-Aid.
I really want to recap two really, really important point that if anybody missed it, the like I've interviewed so many business owners who are extremely successful in the brick and mortar business space, and the first two foundation of a successful brick and mortar business is the reputation. Like that is not a bargain. It is a must done. You have to have the reputation. So here, Michael, it seems like you really very consistent with your reputation across all clients, every single place, every single market you enter, you carry the same reputation. So what is your take, like what is your, I would say, secret in keeping such a high reputation standard for yourself, for your business?
That's a hard one, I guess, um, because I know it's so important um, to have to leave a good taste in someone's mouth. It's all goodwill. I mean, I can't buy goodwill. I have to, you know, I have to warrant goodwill. So I have to earn that goodwill from my clients. We get a lot of corporate headshots based on doing an individual headshot, and them having a very good experience because I'm make stupid jokes and I make them happy, and part of that is because I need them to be happy, and so they'll smile in a real genuine smile. If you do good work and you make it a pleasant experience for everyone, then they don't, and your price isn't, if there isn't any other big objections, then you should be able to repeat that business and grow that business. The same way with our when we do our senior sports in schools. Um, we take the time to do very good portrait work when we do a sports picture. We don't just take the picture and next one in. We light it. I've got 3 lights set up for every kid, even though we're outside. But I create those shadows, I create those highlights, I blur out the background. Um, and that's one of the reasons why we picked up this new school, was because they called around, and our one of the schools they called said, "Yeah, this guy's great." And it's just because we go the extra mile to do that. So you've got to set yourself up for success. You can't just wait for it.
I think like for every single brick and mortar who is successful that I spoke with, they have an amazing reputation in the local area. Like I haven't I haven't spoke to an individual who have a great successful brick and mortar and don't have a good reputation. They all have like super 5 stars rating because they really care about their clients. It is a
Oh yeah,
local community, right? Because you're
I
serving your
agree.
local area. Um, it's still a little different than selling online, right? You buy something online, you don't like it, you return it, and that was it. But for the brick and mortars, you are like rooted. you can't you
You
can't
can't
just
hide.
you can't hide. They know where you are, right?
Yep.
So it just makes sense to like you give it your 100% in reputation and really give it everything you got and really do a good job. Um, so like that's the first point. But the next point I want to get your like secrets in is like the resell. Like you're really good with reselling your clients from taking their first portrait and then they got married, you do their wedding, and then you got a couple referrals from that, and then you do their wedding. I mean, your newborn, and then the baby journey, and then the baby up, and then the family portrait, and then the seniors. Like that's amazing. It's just like the you almost involved in their entire family tree. It just your face everywhere.
Yep.
So,
We try
what
to.
is like your, I would say, secret in terms of like what advice you can give to people to kind of like level up their resale value?
Set expectations and then meet those expectations and then go a step further, whatever that step further is in your realm. Um, if you don't set the right expectations, then you and your client don't know what is the end goal. So we've always said, as long as we set expectations, this is what you're going to get, this is what you're going to do, this is how we're going to interact, we will tell them. It's like on our weddings, we tell our clients, your wedding day is going to be very hectic, but no matter what happens, Dawn and I are going to be with you the whole step of the way. And 9 times out of 10, we've experienced whatever catastrophe is currently going on at your wedding, and we'll help you get through it. So we're setting that expectation. But we also set up the expectation, okay, after the wedding, you guys are going to go off to your honeymoon. We're going to work on your pictures. Give us a couple weeks, don't expect them right away. Um, and then, but we do give them some sneak peek pictures that we didn't tell them about. We didn't tell them that you'd get a couple of good pictures right away. So we kind of, we go past and we meet and exceed that. Now we've dropped the ball a time or two. We've either set expectations or didn't set the right expectations or something happened. And at that point, you've got to be as honest and genuine as you can with them and say, hey, I'm sorry, I forgot you. I lost that email. I forgot to write it down. I'm one very much for forgetting to write something down. And I tell my clients, if I promise you something and you don't get it, keep me honest, call me, text me, email me, say, Mike, did you forget me? Because chances are I probably did forget you. It's not that I'm putting you off. I just am forgetful. Even if I write down stuff, I'll forget where I put it. So again, I'm setting that expectation. Why haven't we heard from Mike? So like I said, as long as you're upfront and honest and sincere, I think sincerity is lost on a lot of people now with their client relations.
Yeah,
I think
I
if you're
totally agree with
trying to
you there.
BS people,
Yeah.
they're on to you about that BS.
People can tell when you BS them. Like
Yes.
they're not stupid. They know when you are BSing them, okay? So like, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, that was a bonus from you, man. Like that's a bonus nugget.
I try.
I just want to recap that. So setting expectation is so important in any businesses because your clients need to know what's to be expected, what's gonna happen. So if you set the correct expectation from your clients, they're gonna understand why things take time. They're gonna know, like, tell them what's gonna happen. Don't just hide from them. Just be very transparent. So transparency is another key thing. Like, be honest. Um, there are times in our business, and we screwed up. Honestly, they call and make an appointment, and frankly, I was doing 3,000 things at the same time, being in the salon, and I forgot. I didn't put it down, and they showed up We're like, whoops, I'm so sorry. I remember speaking to you and I apologize. I didn't write it down. It slipped my mind.
Oh, I've done that.
Um,
We're
and
getting the
but
book.
we'll fix it. Well, you got my promise. I'll do everything I can in my power to make it right for you. I hope you understand that. So like, just be honest with people. Things happen. That's why we're human. We we are we bound to make mistakes, and when you do make mistakes, just own up to it. Like, it takes so much. Like, what do you call it? Like, it takes so much pride, all right? Like, just to admit it. Like, hey, you screwed up. Just admit it, and let's fix it, right? So as we're coming into the end of the interview, I think we got a lot of great, I would say, secrets on how to grow and scale brick and mortar for a long term, for a long term. What would be the top three advice you can give to other brick and mortar business owners who want to level up their business, right? Who want to level up their game? What would be your advice?
Well, the first one is to plan. And when I say plan, I mean sit down and see, literally write down where you are at in as many different areas as you can think of. So write that down, see where you are currently at in those areas, and then project where do you want to be in those areas, and then figure out a plan to get to that area. And then as time goes on, keep going back to that list and see what needs to change. What, like when COVID hit, everything had to change. You know, things happen. If a competitor moves into your area, now you got to change. You've got to adapt. In the photography business, um, one of our favorite conference leaders, um, his favorite saying is pivot. Something happens, you've got to be able to pivot. But if you don't know what that pivot point is or that pivot direction is ahead of time, now when you need to pivot, it's going to take you so much longer. And in the heat of the moment, you're not going to make likelihood of you making the right pivot decision is minimal. So think about what happens and what could happen and how are you going to address that. So that'd be kind of the number one thing. The number two thing is always just be your own customer. If you were your customer, how do you want to be treated? And do that and treat your customers that way. You'll either be successful in that or you'll find out right away that you're a lousy customer of yourself. And the third is make good relationships with others. People will sell you better than you'll sell yourself if you've done them right. And people will listen to other people saying this person is good more than they'll listen to you telling them why you're good. So, yeah, word of mouth, plan, and then execute. I think those are three things. It might be.
All right, Michael. Thank you for that. It was such a pleasure speaking with you and learning on your method of pretty much growing a business from a side hustle into a main business, renting your own studio and compete in your local competitions and just really understand I would say, the value ladders of all of your clients. That's amazing that you understand that. So thank you for sharing that. I think that was very good. I'll see everybody on the next episode. Michael, see you next time. Thank you so much.